Welcome to the Latino Podcast, where we discuss the intersection of law and our Latino communities with legal, political, and community leaders and visionaries. Let's get started.
Hey, Sean Gomez. Welcome to another episode of the Latino, where we discuss the intersection between law and our Latino communities. This episode, as always, is brought to you by your sponsor, Gomez Trial Attorneys. We are a binational, bicultural, and best-in-class law firm. We offer premier legal services in both the English and Spanish languages to clients who have suffered personal injury, employment torts or wrongdoing, civil rights abuses. We also represent victims of sexual abuse, sexual assault. We provide legal services all over California, all over the United States, with a special focus on the Southwest Mexico border region. So California, Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas. I'm today joined by my co-host, David Areguin. He is our managing attorney in charge of now the California and Mexico border region. He also is our a managing attorney for attorney relations. So we try to have relationships with different lawyers, both here in California and elsewhere. We're joined today by a very special guest who I can't believe has not been on our podcast already. David was on our podcast before. He was a lawyer at the firm. Our guest today is a current senior trial attorney at our law firm, Lara Deitz. She has been with us in doing really high-level legal work, very involved in Raza Lawyers and other community organizations from here in San Diego, and just an amazing lawyer and human and, force in our community. Thank you for being with us, Lara Deitz.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for the beautiful introduction.
Of course.
Very kind.
Now, what we like to do is we like to learn a little bit about our guests, like where you grew up, went to school, that kind of thing.
So I'm born and raised here in San Diego, and obviously, like yourself, very proud of that. I care so much about our community, and that's what really motivated me to come back after college. Was I knew I wanted to be a lawyer and to really cater to our community here in San Diego. So I grew up in San Diego in La Jolla and attended Francis Parker. And from there, I went on to Texas Christian University. I think 18-year-old me was just wanting to get out away from parents. Definitely a big culture shock from San Diego.
Where's TCU?
It's in Fort Worth, Texas.
Fort Worth.
Right outside of Dallas.
All right.
Very popular school.
Yes.
A lot of people that went there, they loved it. Right?
Yes. I mean, it's an incredible school. I had an incredible experience, and I think that it really allowed me to become more independent, really getting far away from San Diego. But it was a culture shock, just because here in San Diego, I just like to still think of us as, a surf town, and it's just a different dynamic and different culture. So I attended Texas Christian University, where I majored in political science with an emphasis in law, and a minor in criminal justice. And so really solidifying and setting the stage for me to become an attorney, and really taking courses like due process and criminal courts to just ensure that this is what I wanted to do, become an attorney. And so knowing that I wanted to become an attorney and cater towards our community here in San Diego that I care a lot about, I came back to San Diego and attended Cal Western School of Law, where I graduated and received my Juris Doctorate. And I've been here ever since.
With honors. I saw that.
Yes, magna cum laude.
Wow, holy cow.
Yes.
Man, I'm learning things right here. I always knew she was smart, but I didn't know, one of these nerdy book smart people.
I did a little background check, but I couldn't find much. That's why I'm happy to learn all this.
Yeah.
No, I definitely was the nerdy one in law school. I just really kept my head down and was really competitive and wanting to get the highest grade in every class.
Now, so where'd this come from, this early focus on law and wanting to be a lawyer, from the get?
It's a good question, because I'm always envious of people that had an aha moment or something that happened to them, like a personal experience, whether it's family member that went through the criminal justice system or et cetera. It wasn't necessarily like that. I think that coming from a family of immigrants, I always like to joke about this. You're either going to become a lawyer or a doctor. That's always kind of the pressure that's instilled. And so growing up, my grandfather, Robert, used to always joke around and be like, you're going to be a lawyer. You're going to be a lawyer. And so that was always in the back of my head. And I think that, as I read certain books or was become very intrigued, at first my intrigue was with criminal law. And so having that pressure in the back of my mind and then actually realizing that the law was something that I was passionate about and something that I enjoyed learning about and something that, we're so lucky to have our civil and criminal justice system here in the United States as opposed to other countries that don't have the same access. I think that was really a motivating factor. But still, really, I think a lot of the driving point was coming from an immigrant family that really kind of pressured you to grow to that level of professionalism.
So what an immigrant family, like, tell us about that. Tell us about your family, where they're from, their influence on you.
Of course. So on my father's side, honestly, a big mixture of a lot of things. On my father's side, my family is Eastern European Jews. And so in an effort to try to escape the Holocaust and the growing persecution in Eastern Europe at the time, my great-grandmother Fela, had to marry her first cousin in order to escape, in order to go to Mexico, because at the time, Ellis Island had met their cap. They were no longer allowing people into the United States. And so
that's why everybody went to Mexico City. That's why. Because they closed the gates at Ellis?
Yes.
No way.
Yeah.
A lot of the people I know in Mexico City, they're Jews, and that's the same area.
Yeah,
I didn't, like Polanco.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course.
And I think that unless you grew up here in San Diego or are just familiar with it, a lot of people don't really know that there's kind of a huge Mexican Jewish community, and it started with that. So, my great grandmother had, in order to escape and bring her mother, her brother, and her sister with her, had to marry her first cousin who was already living in Guadalajara.
Oh, wow.
And so she came in through Tampico, and then eventually got to Guadalajara, where my grandparents and my grandmother and my father were born in Guadalajara. So eventually, like you'll see, I mean, there was a lot of Mexican Jews that immigrated from Guadalajara and Mexico City to Tijuana back in the 70s and 80s and eventually made their way to the United States. So my family came here in the 70s and 80s. And so immigrants on the end. So on my father's side, I'm first generation here in the United States. On my mother's side, third generation, but my grandfather came from a family of immigrants as well from Mexico. And so he was the one that I was saying that was really, encouraging of, you're either going to become a doctor or a lawyer, because that's, we didn't make our efforts and strive and work hard to come to this country, and you're not to, reach those expectations, which a lot of it was a joke, but, I think that really encouraged me and pressured me to become an attorney.
Super amazing story. And I learned something.
Yes.
Well, the fact that Lara is a little bit tapatía.
I am.
Definitely. And so, so you said, like, at first you wanted to do criminal law. Talk to us about your journey through law school and kind of what you were thinking about doing, what you ended up doing, that path and journey.
Yeah. So I think, this is going to sound cliche, but I remember in 8th grade vividly reading To Kill a Mockingbird and being really moved by that book. And I think that's what really led to my interest in criminal law. But also I remember following so closely, like the Casey Anthony trial, and wanting to watch that nonstop. And so at that point in time, when I was like, well, I think I want to do something, whether in criminal law, whether it's be a prosecutor or a criminal defense attorney. At that point, I was kind of torn. And so once I went to college, it was the summer going into my second year. I came back home to San Diego and interned as a student worker at the San Diego District Attorney's Office, and got to shadow who is now a judge on the bench, Judge Brower. He was previously a JAG, and then he had entered the insurance fraud division at the District Attorney's Office. I really was his law clerk intern. So at first I was doing a lot of insurance fraud related crimes, which was interesting because it's a grant funded division at the district attorney's office, but wasn't really getting to touch those kind of
You want to do Casey Anthony?
Yes, where I was wanting the exposure to the
Give me your
murders and not the not having workers' compensation insurance. Well, I respect that area. It just wasn't that glamorous side that you think of when you think of the criminal law and the criminal justice system.
It's still a great internship. So I sit that on the under the economic crimes division.
Okay.
So it's still probably like the largest law firm in talent. But I thought that was a great experience that you got there and basically going into court and all this.
Yes, and it really was because I really got to see the dynamic. I mean, obviously with district attorneys, they're in court every single day, whether they're the calendar attorney or, answering up or whatever it may be. So it was nice to have that exposure and see the inner workings of the criminal court system. And so I continued on. And then in college, I actually interned for a judge for 2 years in a criminal court. It was criminal court number 6, I think. Her name was Judge Jamie Cummings. And she handled a lot of the criminal domestic violence.
Fort Worth?
Yes.
Dallas? Okay.
Yes. Tarrant County, Fort Worth.
All right. And you were like dead set on this path.
I was wanting to do anything. And I think what helped is having good mentors that were encouraging and really telling me how important it was to try out different areas of the law and really making sure that this was a path I was wanting to take on because, as you guys know, law school's not easy. It's not for everyone. It's a big commitment. So really making sure that it's something that you're passionate about. So I interned there for the judge in Tarrant County, and it was a lot of domestic violence criminal cases. And with it, I got to see the background stuff of the research that the research attorney is doing for the judge and what's happening in chambers, and then also getting to shadow district attorneys and criminal defense attorneys. So that point in time I was like, okay, I'm into criminal law, but what side do I like? I'm intrigued by both. And then I kind of switched gears. Then I reached a point where I was like, I don't know if I want to do criminal law. And that was when I started law school, or I went into law school thinking complete 180, thinking I wanted to do general counsel work.
General counsel?
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't know where that popped out of.
This side of things.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted at that point.
A complete 180, which is like you went from wanting to be so passionate about litigation, then all of a sudden in-house, which here don't do absolutely any kind of litigation. You're just kind of an expert in all different areas of the law. And so in law school, thinking that, I interned for the San Diego County Regional Airport Authority for their general counsel, which was interesting because you're dealing with land use regulations, a lot of HR policy making decisions.
A lot of stuff.
Yeah, but it was actually a few mentors and also my now husband that encouraged me, saying like, I think you're selling yourself not short, but that he was like, I see you in the courtroom, not just behind a desk implementing policies and procedures. And so
like as a diversion or, intro, your husband is a lawyer, right?
Yes. Yes.
And he's a criminal defense lawyer?
Yes, he is.
And did you guys go to law school together, I imagine?
We did. He was the year above me in law school, but we attended law school together.
Okay. And you're doing your general counsel thing. And he's like, hey, Lara, honey. I think you're made for the courtroom,
Yeah.
And so then what happened?
So then at that point, I took a few courses at Cal Western, which, I'm a huge advocate for Cal Western, but they do have a lot of trial litigation courses that you could take. So started taking that. And then I was like, okay, I think, this I'm into. Or even my second year of law school, we used to have this course, I don't know if it still exists, but called STEPS. And you had to argue an MSJ motion. And I remember, and they'd bring in a judge, and you'd argue it before them. And in that moment, I'm like, I think he's right. And out of law school, I originally did government entity defense for El Centro, Imperial County, Riverside. Short-lived, because I didn't love being on the the civil defense side.
Where was that?
I worked, his name was John McCormick.
Oh.
It was a very small
All right.
firm called McCormick Mitchell. It was like,
Yeah, I know.
But it gives you a little insight on the other side.
Yeah.
Yes.
How it works, how they communicate, which, works for us.
Yes. And now in my job, it has helped me so much, especially being on the other end of representing these government entities and kind of knowing the games that are played on the other side and things that would make a plaintiff's attorney job difficult. But I wasn't getting a lot of litigation experience with that. I was merely, deposition here and there or appearing at a case management conference, and that was it. So I had a friend from law school reach out that they were hiring at a family law firm that she was working at. And she would always talk about how much litigation experience she was getting. And I jumped on the opportunity. At first I was like, I never really considered family law at any point in law school, but I thought, okay, if I could get in the courtroom every day, appearing in front of judges, creating those relationships, making my name known, and really gaining the tools and skills to feel comfortable in the courtroom, I'll do this. And so I did family law for just shy of 3 years before obviously coming here to the firm.
And so is it true you're in court a lot?
Yes. I had a very heavy caseload, and I was at a very high volume firm. So 99% of the time I would spend my days in court, which was great. And I remember there's even this one judge that I still see all the time, Judge Alvarez, and she used to be in Department 704, and we would joke because I'd be in her department almost every day during the week. I had so many cases assigned to that department. She'd be like, Miss Deitz, you're back again. So I was in court a lot. And
where is that? Like, where's family court?
It's in the main courthouse, the brand new courthouse, the one that's drawn right behind you.
And I think to this day, it's very much in person. People
Yes.
showing up in person for family law.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. And I mean, it was a weird time because when I did practice family law at the beginning, it was, the COVID pandemic days where everything was virtual and just really adapting to that. But I did gain a lot of valuable litigation experience, and which I believe has helped me become good at my job presently.
And so, like, what percentage of your time doing that was devoted to like fighting over the kids, like kid custody issues?
Too much.
Or support issues?
Honestly, a lot of the kids, you'd see some cases where they'd be fighting over every little thing, whether the kid's going to drink almond milk or whole milk. And you'd be sitting there thinking, you're spending thousands and thousands of dollars to fight with your soon-to-be ex over what kind of milk the child is drinking.
Yeah.
So I think that, unfortunately, family law is very messy.
Yeah. I always thought I wouldn't want to do that work. I mean, all respect in the world to the people that do, but I feel like, I don't know, man, like of all the stuff you could do, I feel like it would emotionally drain me more than anything, especially like if the parents were like using the kids and like, I feel like a lot of, I don't know, my impression looking from the outside is a lot of these parents not even realizing it or not acting in the best interest of their kids. Mm-hmm. Like they're trying to perpetuate this relationship or they're trying to get back or I don't know, like, how was that? Was that hard at times?
It was. And I mean, you are right. Unfortunately, kids become pawns in these situations where some people just become so vindictive and you see their darkest side when they're going through the family court system. And it is hard as their attorney because, you're seeing this firsthand. And I mean, my parents are divorced. So I went through, and unfortunately it was a very amicable situation, but it was hard for me to not put myself in these kids' shoes because knowing that they were the ones at the end of the day being impacted just because their parents were being dysfunctional and hated each other so much and were so distracted with this rage and anger that at the end of the day, they weren't staying or wanting to come to realize what was best for their kids. Because you have parents that are coming at the works with allegations that are crazy and you're like, you wouldn't have stayed with it's just especially when it comes to the kids, just because out of the desire of wanting to have primary custody or whatnot. And so it was hard because it was emotionally draining, because you could walk out of the courtroom. There'd be plenty of times where I'd be like, wow, I just got my client an incredible result, and your clients aren't happy. Still, there's always another level. And it is interesting what you said, like, well, shouldn't they think about what's in the best interest of the kids? I mean, with custody, the standard, it's the best interest standard. And a lot of times, and it is like frequent and continuing contact with both parents. And a lot of times parents don't care. And it's sad. I mean, there's a minority group where you do have really amicable dissolutions where the parents just want what's best for the family and the kids. But then you have that stark contrast of that's not the case, that people are willing to lose every single penny they have fighting.
So I think one of the very unfortunate situations is I did a bit of family practice at the start of my career. But did you see a lot of like domestic violence restraining orders? And generally they come from like fighting for the kids?
Yes.
Right.
Yes. I would see that very frequently. And it's hard because then you have situations where there are legit domestic violence situations, that shouldn't be overlooked. But then you have situations where it's a parent, it's a custody grab, and a parent is, fighting, flying to court, being the first one to file their restraining order just because they're trying to check the box that they, should have primary physical and legal custody, and that, mom or dad's a threat, so they shouldn't have any custody. And if so, it's supervision. And then you're creating an uphill battle. So I would see that very frequently where it'd be false allegations of domestic violence. And it's sad because I think it just taints and puts a cloud over the legit domestic violence situations that do happen in the court system. But yeah, I mean, I'm happy to have gotten away from it and now do what I do, which I feel, it feels so much more rewarding.
Tell us about how, so you're over there, in court all day, billing these crazy people for fighting with each other. And so, how did you find your way to Gomez Trial Attorneys? How did that happen?
So a prior associate here at the firm had actually reached out, and I had attended law school with him. And he was aware of what a nerd I was in law school. Because he'd always give me a hard time saying that I would cry if I'd get an A- because it wasn't an A. So he had seen me in court a few times.
You have A minuses?
I do.
What? This is an outrage. Okay, continue.
And he had reached out that you guys had an opening position in the single events department, and had seen me in court and knew just kind of the work ethic that I had, and reached out and was like, we're hiring. I know it's completely different than what you are doing presently, but he's like, I remember you did work on the defense side. Are you interested to meet with me? Let me tell you about the firm more. And so I thought, you know what? I'm content at where I am, but I don't feel fulfilled. And I felt that if I continued doing family law, it'd take over my life in a negative way, just because it does make you, it's hard. It affects you emotionally and your own personal life. And so I thought, oh my God, I'm going to end up in the court system myself if I don't find it out.
You were married, right?
Yes, I wasn't. And Ari and I would joke about that, like that.
Yeah.
It just was it was hard. It was hard not to let what your clients were going through and the reactions impact you emotionally. So I met with the former attorney that was here at our firm, and I heard him out, and then he brought me over to the firm, and I met you, and I met with the other partner, John Greer. And I went to lunch with John Greer, and I thought, this is what I'm looking for. I'm looking for a career where I'm able to help people that have been harmed, but without that emotion. Obviously I still have that emotional connection with my clients because I feel so much for them, and I want to fight so hard for them, but it's a different level of emotion. But I just felt like this career opportunity and doing plaintiff's work was just going to be so much more fulfilling and more rewarding, and something that, was what had motivated me to even become an attorney. So I started off here in the single events department.
What is that, single events?
So it's our high volume division, typically lower policy limit cases, but just higher volume. And so starting in that
A lot
department,
of car crash cases?
yes, predominantly a lot of motor vehicle collisions and not as much premises liability, but it's you and a paralegal and a case manager, and it's higher volume. And starting off that department really helped me grasp and have an understanding and a foundational knowledge on the plaintiff's, side of civil litigation. And so to me, that was such a good starting point, just because I got to understand the inner workings. And it was really much a sink or swim situation, which I'm so grateful for, because one, I was able to swim. Two, really, I believe, taught me a foundational starting point, which really helped me once I moved on to a trial team.
So at some point you go from that to what you call a trial team. So what do you do as a lawyer today for Gomez trial attorneys on a trial team?
Yeah, so now I'm on Brian Mason's team, who's one of the partners here. So I was in single events. I think it was not even a year until he recruited me over to his team. So we're working on catastrophic injury cases. Our team does a lot of civil rights cases, which I'm very passionate about, and medical malpractice. So it's just more complex cases, a lot more litigation heavy than what I was doing more so in single events. In single events, a lot of it was primarily pre-litigation. Obviously, I had cases in litigation, but very pre-litigation heavy. But now on a trial team, we're very litigation heavy. We're going to trial, a lot more depositions, a lot more discovery, a lot more meet and confers. And
tell us about a couple cases that you really have been excited or are excited about that you work on.
My favorite case, which I guess I can't talk too much about, it's pending litigation, but civil rights, our jail death case on the Bach case is probably one of my biggest passion projects. It's something that I'm very passionate about, maybe because I'm married a criminal defense attorney, but I think that, we do have a problem in our jail systems here in San Diego County. And I think that a lot of people are not aware of that, and or sometimes people don't care because they're like, oh, they're criminal defendants, who cares? Well, it's pretrial detainees that are being held in our county jails. There's the presumption of innocence. Just because someone is, whether or not they are a criminal, doesn't mean that they should be killed in custody or, not provided adequate medical treatment. So we're currently in active litigation on that case, but that's a case that really makes me excited and something that I'm very passionate about, and advocating for that family and for, what Keith Bach had to endure. But what I love so much is just digging through just the policies, the procedures, and the issues that have been occurring within the county jails. So that's one. And then
in that case, Lara doesn't want to talk about it too much because it's some pending litigation, but it's been in the news. Mm-hmm. This gentleman was Navy veteran, longtime City San Diego employee, is a diabetic. Mm-hmm. Had an incident at home while his blood sugar was unregulated. It causes him to get in a bad mood, basically. Mm-hmm. And so they take him away, and then they don't give him his insulin, and he dies of ketoacidosis.
Correct.
Yeah, sad case.
Yeah, and it was a preventable death. All he needed was his insulin, which obviously they're in dispute about the insulin that was given and whatnot. But
that's a case that's received some press coverage. I kind of remember right when the case came in, I kind of remember like most of the team was either at or off to a retreat in Mexico, I think. Mm-hmm. And then you and Brian were here. Brian went on English TV and you went on Spanish TV.
So I was actually in Houston. Well, you're correct. So I was in Houston with you for Shades and Masks, but majority of everyone else was in Mexico on the firm retreat.
Yeah.
And Brian was still here finishing up an MSJ. He had to argue an MSJ in a big trucking case that we had settled this year. But he did the interview here in English, and then I hopped on when we were in Houston to do the Spanish. Yeah, to do the Spanish interview, just because on the eve of the deadline for filing the complaint was when we finally received the medical examiner report, which really shed a lot more light onto what had happened while Keith was in custody.
Amazing. Like one more case. Tell us about one more case that you've worked on or you're excited about.
Well, I think another case that I was really excited about, and even more so after the verdict, was our recent case against MTS that we received an $8.5 million verdict on. So I think that case is as well, just because really seen through justice. In that situation, the parents, it was a wrongful death case, and the parents just wanted validation and justice and accountability on MTS's part, just because for so long, it was painted a picture that their son, who was strangled to death on the MTS bus, was drug addict, criminal, every horrible name under the sun. And I think that the jury really validated how they were feeling and showed that that's not who their son was, and that MTS was responsible and held accountable. And I think getting to work on that case is something that I enjoyed so much, and I'm still very happy with the outcome.
Another high-profile case that received some good media coverage, and basically your client's decedent was basically put in a chokehold by another passenger for like 8 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So, a little reminiscent of George Floyd, in a way, black young man, and a zero offer case. In that case, the bus company offered you nothing, and you got a verdict of $8.5 million.
Yeah. So it was, I really owe it to Brian and to you. You guys were the masterminds on this, and Brian did a fantastic job putting on the case. But it was really nice to see that the jury cared so much, because it was the decedent was someone that had a future that was taken away from him at 28 years old. But I do think there's a trend with my favorite cases.
Yeah, right.
Them being in the media.
You're one of these radicals. There's...
and if I may, I remember the poster in the press conference. I know you spoke about emotion. You spoke about being passionate. And I think I told you this. I saw the press conference, and I just saw your face. You just show emotion.
Yeah.
You said the jury cared, but it definitely looked like you care about your clients.
Yes.
So when I saw that really stuck to me. And, it's good that, we have her on the burn.
Thank you.
A special shout out to the husband, because she got her doc on the litigation.
Oh, yeah.
So in this way, she's
all right. Thank you.
I got to give him a shout out, but I do appreciate that. And I think, it's been nice to have mentors like Brian and you that are so passionate about your clients. And, that's really taught me well. And it's hard. For me, it's hard not to care, especially like in this recent situation, seeing two wonderful people lose their son. No parent should ever have to go through that. Or even in the Bach case, like no one deserves for their spouse to be taken away from them and killed in that way. But thank you. It means a lot.
Of course.
So I understand that you're former treasurer, currently at-large director for Raza Lawyers of San Diego. Talk to us a little bit about that group, the work that they do, and your role with that group.
Yeah, so I'm the former treasurer of the association. So it was 1 year term. So I recently just stepped out of that, and then I've now assumed the role of at-large director. So I'm still on the board, just in a different capacity. But it is an association that I do care about tremendously. I've met such incredible people working on the board or just attending these events. And something that we care so much. It's not just the Hispanic community that we're passionate about uplifting. It's all minority communities. We do put on the scholarship fund gala every year. We're awarding scholarship funds to the recipients that are law school students to obviously help alleviate the drastic cost of law school. And we also do it in the springtime, which is the bar stipend. So that's something that's part of the association that I am very passionate about, that, we have such incredible donors like our firm, which I actually just found out at the most recent gala that you were the first one to donate to the scholarship fund.
I did. Yeah, I did remember that either.
Are you the longest standing member?
I'm like a lifetime member too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't even, he said that. I go, wow. Okay.
Well, so thank you for that. But, that's something that I care about tremendously, because law school is such a financial hardship, and it shouldn't prevent anyone, whatever background demographic you are, from pursuing your dreams and becoming an attorney in this legal community. So we do, aside from that, we do, give back tremendously. We do have the public benefit fund that does a lot more hands-on community service events, whether it's putting on suit drives for homeless or, low income that are needing suits for interviews, etc. But I am very passionate about La Raza and the association, everything that the community has done. And it's been really cool to see it evolve. And I'm excited to see where this new board and president are going to take it the next year.
And so, we see this growing, I would say, the demographics of, California and the Southwest are showing an increasing population of Latinos, Spanish speakers, people from, Mexico, Central South America. And so, organizations like that, among other things, provide scholarship resources to representative future lawyers, I think super important. Mm-hmm. What about, your work here? We say that we're a binational, we have office in Mexico and here, and we're bi-cultural, I think you can speak to, well, why don't you speak to how does it help you to have that cultural awareness and basically language ability mm-hmm. in terms of representing, your clients in your everyday work as a member of this trial team?
It helps a ton, especially being in San Diego. Like we just said, we have such a large Hispanic population here in San Diego County. And I'm fluent in Spanish. And so immediately we have a very large amount of Spanish speaking clients, and immediately, just the ability to understand their culture. I myself am Mexican, but also the ability to speak Spanish fluently allows them to feel a lot more confident and comfortable with me. For my dad, for example, my dad speaks Spanish and English, prefers Spanish. But he's going to be more comfortable working with an attorney or someone that is going to be able to speak Spanish fluently, but also understand the culture, whether it's the jokes or just the cultural background, etc. So it does help me immensely, having the ability to understand my clients, because, there's so many people I could say, okay, well, I don't speak Spanish, but I could have someone interpreting and I could still represent them. There's a huge difference, because having that ability to have that one-on-one communication conversation with your clients not only helps me understand what they've gone through better, but also be able to connect with them, which, is so imperative in what we do in order to adequately advocate for them. So it's something that I think is awesome that we have so many Spanish speakers here at the firm, because we are able to effectively communicate with them, make them feel comfortable, have them understand that we know where they're coming from. We know their cultural background, and we are going to be able to adequately, fight for them and represent them. So it has helped me tremendously, not only in my current role, but even prior jobs, just being fluent. And so I always tell people, I'm like, if you speak Spanish and you have kids, teach your kids to speak Spanish. It's the most important thing to me, especially here in San Diego County, or just the growing Hispanic population throughout the country.
I totally agree with that. You probably see the advantage as well during depositions.
Yes.
So
yes.
maybe an interpreter is trying to translate something literally, but they're not getting the real message behind it, right?
Yes.
So at that point, you can actually interject and say, well, that's not what my client said.
Yeah.
Right.
I've had that happen to me before. If I think it was like in June, I was in a deposition up in Temecula, and they were taking my client's deposition, and the interpreter, court certified interpreter. And we were 5 minutes into the admonitions, and I go, she's not even translating the admonitions correctly. Like, what is happening here? And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to give it another minute to see if this was just a few mistakes. And we don't. I told defense counsel, I'm like, can we take a quick break, pull her aside? I go, you guys are entitled to my client's most accurate testimony, but I need to ensure that my client's testimony is being adequately and correctly translated. And that's not what's happening here. So it is a huge benefit, because if not, we would have allowed the whole deposition to have gone forward, and who knows what the transcript would have looked like.
Yeah, they'd be like, are you hurt? And she'd be like, yes, very much. And it get translated, not at all.
Yes. Because there's some, I've even seen it in court when I did family law. I remember doing a restraining order, and then I'm like, my client's testifying as to the abuse that he underwent. And I'm like, and I was a brand new attorney, and I'm like, what do I do? Like, I'm in sheer panic. I'm like, right in front of the judges is a court certified interpreter. Am I about to embarrass? But it is such a benefit, being able to speak Spanish fluently.
What about like at your old firm? I kind of remember, weren't you like the Spanish speaking lawyer?
Yes. Yeah. So I handled predominantly the Spanish speaking clients there.
That's a lot of clients.
Yes. Yes. And it was a lot of, a lot of the clients had, one of the spouses was still in Mexico, or a majority of the assets, bank accounts, et cetera, were in Mexico. So figuring that out was took a lot. It's really easy to hide stuff there, or falsify documents.
There's exposure to Mexican law.
Yes.
Yeah, I know. You see it all over. You see, like, se habla español, like on every
without
yeah, on everybody's website, or their whatever, their TV commercials or their billboards. And I think like the traditional model was they'd have like maybe like 2 or 5 lawyers, all non-Spanish speakers, and then they would have paralegals, almost all non-Spanish speakers. And then they might have like one legal that just speaks Spanish, and so they say "se habla español."
No.
To this day, it probably.
Yeah, I think it still is the case. That's why just recognizing the importance of what you said, like why we've intentionally tried to build out a team that can connect both linguistically and culturally,
because it matters.
Yeah, it matters a lot.
Yeah.
So you're here, about to embark on this new journey of motherhood.
Yes.
And so, like, I feel like, being a lawyer in a high sort of stakes capacity, like you're working on $1 million cases all the time, and a lot at stake, high stakes, high risk. And now you're going to be a mom too. I wonder, like, and I'm sure like many of our listeners have been through that journey. And so I want to check in with you about, like, how are you feeling? Are you like worried, oh, it's going to be too much? Can I juggle it all? Or do you feel confident, or how do you feel?
I think I feel confident. I think, in our most recent trial in the GAF case, I was pregnant. And so that I was like, it gave me so much more respect. I mean, I've seen so many attorneys, whether, like, I remember my husband had a trial against a district attorney. I think it was like a year and a half ago, and she was 2 weeks from giving birth and had like a week and a half trial that she put on. And so for me, it just has given me, a lot more respect for going through that. But I don't think I think nerves with becoming a parent, but not nerves in terms of my career. I think inevitably, it's in the back of our minds of, oh, how is this going to change? Like, I still want to be performing at that same level. I don't want my career to change. I still, want to give it my 100%, still work on these types of cases. So I think just trying to go into it with a plan, knowing that, I'm going to have a spouse I'm going to have to rely on, but I guess trying not to be worried about how it's going to impact my career, because I really don't want that. I mean, I think, for so long, my number one was my career, and that's something I still care about so much. And it's still my number one. And it's, I don't want that to change. I just want it to be that, but just plus a kid. And, my husband and I will have to figure it out since we're both trial attorneys, but thank God for grandparents and, and hopefully help.
Do they live here?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Both my parents are here, and, I have a great support system with my family. So I will definitely be leaning on them so that I feel keep doing trials.
I mean, David's a new dad.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I feel like it really grounds you, really gives you purpose, motivates you. I think makes you a better lawyer.
Yeah.
But like, how about you? How's it going for you? How old's your boy these days?
So he's turning 4 months in 2 days.
Oh my God. Congratulations.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank
Did not
you.
be anywhere pregnant. So that's very exciting.
Thank you.
So it's sort of, like you said, it grounds you, but it makes you more focused, right? Because you basically want to go to work, and now you're not thinking about making money for yourself. You're thinking about making money to pay the mortgage.
Yes.
And then get a 529As to make sure that you have your college tuition, right?
Yes.
All these things change, but, I think I've become more efficient because I know, like, I have this limited time that I want to do work. And then at least from like 8:30 to 10, I can be with baby.
Yeah.
It's something like that.
Yeah.
And I do enjoy being out. So, but no, congratulations. And then I think
Thank you.
And, like you said, you've been very focused on work, getting all these A's, so not A minuses.
I had A minuses too.
So I think, just the fact that you work so hard, you're going to continue working so hard, with a baby, with your work, with your career.
Yeah. I mean, no, it's a good question, is like, I've had friends that are not lawyers that think what I do is crazy or how are you going to do that, baby? I'm like, so there are plenty of other people that do it. I could figure it out. It's just a matter of just, okay, if I'm going to have to get back to work after the baby goes to sleep, then that's what I'll do. And that's no problem. It's just a matter of just adapting, but I love what I do, and it's part of who I am, and I don't want to get rid of that.
Yeah. I feel like mothers have a superpower. They can get everything done. I was thinking about Ruth Bader Ginsburg, like when she was at Harvard Law School, and I think her husband had cancer. And so she was doing and they had kids. She had 2 kids already, I think.
Yeah.
And she was like doing all her work. She was doing all his work, taking care of the kids. Like, I mean, that's just, you can't beat a mother.
No, she's a superwoman.
I'm always dosy. Even though I tried to help, especially at night, you'll see this.
Yeah.
But yeah, Mom's like, my wife's doing a great job. Just like, I don't know how she's doing it. She's not sleeping well, but she's still there.
You just power through, I think. I'll figure it out. Fortunately, I'm at 6 months, so I still have a few months to at least
easy
get emotionally prepared, and we'll see how things go.
So, are you like, when this baby arrives, would you like to see this baby, one, go to Francis Parker, which for our listeners, Lara grew up in La Jolla, she said, but she went to Francis Parker. And so, like, there are a number of these nice, well-acclaimed private schools here. 2 of them happen to be in La Jolla. One in La Jolla proper, a place called Bishop's. And then there's a place called La Jolla Country Day, which is not really in La Jolla, but close enough. But then you went to Francis Parker, which is kind of, I would say Linda Vista-y.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the middle school and high school is right across the street from USD, and then the elementary school in Mission Hills.
So,
right.
like, I'm curious, like, how come you went to Francis Parker?
I will have to ask my parents.
Oh, they made that choice.
They made that choice.
Yeah.
My sister originally went to San Diego Jewish Academy.
Okay.
And then I think in 5th grade switched over to Francis Parker. And so my brother.
Was Jewish Academy around back then?
Yes, but it was at well, do you know where Bethel? It's a city.
Oh, it wasn't at his current.
No, it wasn't at his current campus. That was later.
He might be a Jewish Academy alum if it was. That's pretty nice.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, the campus is very, very nice now. So I think just because my sister was at Francis Parker, my brother and I are 15 months apart. So I think my parents just thought, let's have our kids there.
Yeah.
Will my kid go there? Probably not. I had an incredible experience. Some of my closest friends are my friends that I made through Francis Parker.
And it has a great reputation.
Yes, it does. I mean, it really prepared me well for college, and it really is a college, key college prep school. But one, I don't know if I want to pay that as much as they now charge. Two, I think that you're kind of in a bubble there, which is great. There's pros and cons. I think my graduating class was less than 120 kids. I think maybe more on like 100, 105, which is great. You're with the same kids pretty much from pre-K, kindergarten through your senior year. So you really have the opportunity to make those close friendships. But I think it's also closed off from the real world sometimes. So I think it's a give and take, because I think as a parent, you want what's safest for your kids, and you want your kids to have the best education. So it's definitely a dialogue.
Time will tell.
Yeah, I'm for sending my kid to the Jewish Academy. My husband's from Houston and the opposite spectrum, but we'll see. But
I do foresee preschool at JCC, though. What I see.
Yeah, probably.
I don't think we're going to debate that one.
Yeah, no, probably JCC, or they have a Montessori school at Bethel, which they teach them Spanish also.
Oh, okay. This is very good.
Yeah.
Much needed here.
Yeah.
The more important question, with 2 lawyers as a parent, you think this child, might end up being a lawyer? Would you like to see that?
We actually, Ari and I were talking about that the other day, because Ari's a 3rd generation criminal defense attorney. And so we were joking around. We're like, are we going to encourage that, or are we going to tell him like, maybe get into, I don't know, AI or tech stuff, something tech related. And then I think that we're both like, I think inevitably seeing both of your parents, that's something that's encouraging. A lot of times you want to follow footsteps, or so much of our home conversation is surrounding the law, whether it's me talking about my cases and brainstorming ideas with Ari, or vice versa, Ari doing the same. I know about pretty much every single one of his cases, because he's constantly brainstorming. So I think inevitably this kid will hear a lot about the law, and it'll either drive them to want to become him to become an attorney, or for him to say, absolutely not, I want something completely different. I'll be supportive of whatever. Obviously, I think selfishly I'd be excited to see my son.
We see your parents excited about their work, and passionate about their work. And if I feel like if your son was listening to you guys talk about work, or maybe going to court with you once in a while, they would see you enjoy it.
Yeah.
And probably want to do it.
Yeah.
I imagine.
Yeah. I mean, my dad always told me, pick your career on whatever fulfills you, makes you happy. Like, if it doesn't make you happy, what's going to motivate you to get up in the morning? And I always took that to heart. And I think with me, it's like, I care so much about the clients that I'm representing and about the work that I am doing. So it's so motivating and it's fulfilling to me. And so as long as my kid is fulfilled, but I think that inevitably, like what you're saying, them seeing both me and Ari being passionate about what we do will instill that in them. But I'd be excited. I mean, I think it's always cool, like when your kids, like Annalise comes and interns at the office and, is really driven by the type of work you've done. I think it's really cool.
Yeah, it's cool. I think Annalise will be a lawyer.
Yeah, she'll take over this place.
Yeah. So, in kind of closing, a lot of our listeners are kind of younger, maybe law students, future law students, lawyers just starting out. Like, what kind of advice would you give them, especially to maybe the females that are kind of saying, oh, look at this, strong, successful Latina lawyer. How can I get there? What advice would you give them?
I think really relying on mentors. I think making those connections. I always tell people, because I'll have people reach out to me after a La Raza event saying, can I grab coffee with you? And I always take the time to do that because, I think so many of them are nervous or scared or, oh, I come from a family where no one is a lawyer. Can I do this? Yes, you can. So I think, really going to these networking events, making connections with, current lawyers in the community and really, keeping that connection with them, because you never know who's going to one of these days have a job opening or have a friend that's looking for an associate. But it's not just the job opportunity, but just the mentorship through law school. Like there's this one law student that goes to Thomas Jefferson that, is going to become the first attorney in her family. And I remember she reached out to me immediately after the tri-school mixer that we had here at the office. And I'm always more than happy to meet with her because, I always told her, like, you could do it. And giving her advice of, okay, you're coming up to bar prep. This is the program you need to do. This is the type of schedule. So I think relying on your mentors and really making those connections and just working hard and trying to get as many internship, clerkship positions as possible and really gaining that experience, because, you could sit in a library all you want and just study and get good grades. But I think the practical skill is something that's so important. That's something like when we've hired law clerks for the team, like I want to see that you've had experience, drafting or, the more hands-on experience as opposed to like, okay, you could recite me this evidence code section without looking at it. Like that is great. But I think also really getting that hands-on practical experience is something so important. But so I think that those things, but obviously work hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good advice. Good advice, Lara.
I think that there's a lot of things you could do, but I think.
And so where can people find you? You're on our website, right?
Yeah.
Gomez Trial Attorneys. Wait, thegomezfirm.com,
Yep.
getgomez.com.
Yeah.
And do you have like social media? Are you on social media at all?
I'm not too active on social media. It's
No
more
social
private
media.
for like family
Oh,
stuff.
forget that. No, okay.
I think after, maybe one of these days I need to create a more firm based one, but I think I had some interesting clients. So I did family law that crossed that boundary. So now I like to have my personal social media private, but they could reach me at firm's website.
I can find her at the law firm.
Yes.
Now, do you accept referrals? Like, say someone was listening to this and they say, "Oh, Lara seems cool. I've got a large personal injury case or a civil rights case or a medical malpractice case, but I don't do that." How would it work if they say, "Hey, I want to collaborate with or support Lara"?
Yeah, reach out to me, either cell phone or email, and I'm more than happy to review the case and take it on. And our firm, we're always great about giving referral fees to any attorney that is referring us to case. I'm constantly getting referrals from other attorneys that I'm friends with in the legal community that practice in other areas of the law. So I'm always more than happy, especially, we have our team in particular, like we've had cases that have come to our team, via referral to Brian, where it's a solo that just doesn't have the capacity to take on a big volume case. Send it our way. We're always more than happy. We have the capability. We have a big team. So just reach out to me.
And they you get credit.
Yes.
And the referring lawyers get checks.
Mm-hmm. They
and
do.
So if they are like a family law lawyer or landlord tenant lawyer, don't do this work, but then they are approached by someone with a case like this,
mm-hmm.
then they could call you and they would be well taken care of, the client, and they would at the end assume you'd get a check.
Yeah, I mean, I saw one in particular. I can't talk about the case due to the confidentiality that we just signed, but it was a trucking case that we settled before summer, and the referring attorney got a check for over $1 million. So.
$1 million.
Yeah.
For saying, "Hey, Laura and Brian help us out.
Yeah. And so, send them our way. We're always more than happy and be very pleased.
Excellent, especially if the client speaks Spanish.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you so much for spending time with us. It was fun to learn more about you and your journey as a geek, law nerd. Great things in the future for you as part of the trial team here at Gomez Trial Attorneys. Thank you, David, as always.
Of course.
And so this wraps this episode of the Latino. If you like what you heard, please follow, share, and like. And we'll continue to bring you great conversations with great contributors to our Latino community. That's all for now. Thank you again for listening.
Thank you, John.
Thank you for listening to the Latino Podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.